So let's take a look at this game that I made. This is the work in progress PDF. This is all just sort of sketches that I've done. This is a knight handing his sword, but blade blade towards him to a kid, like he's giving his sword away to a child. This is a woman with a big sword attacking some tentacles, and this is what appears to be a mom that's an archer. Her little child is holding her bow and she's kissing her child goodbye because she's going off to war, or maybe she's going off to an adventure and she's not sure if she will ever come back. And so that is the feel of the game. And in some other videos, I showed you the website and some tools there, but this is sort of the raw game that I'll update these videos as the game progresses. But I've got the first 100 or so pages of this book done. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the high-level concepts of what makes this game different from other games. And I think this little graph here is one of the best things I can show you, which is the adventure themes. So the adventure themes are fight and survive, cast and deceive, harvest and craft, persuade and strategize. And those are organized into geographic arenas, or play spheres is what I call them, of traveling, urban life or cities, rural life, and faction life, where you're building your own base or your own community or faction of some kind. And all of these together sort of make up the exploration and adventure. This is an exploration and adventure game, and even though it can have small stories like, cooking dinner, and having somebody uninvited show up, that could be, and you have to find something to feed them with, because you don't have enough for them, or who knows what it is. That can be a simple story that lasts 5 minutes, but it's still something that enriches the game and is part of the game. And the way the game works, you would actually know a lot of that stuff if you had the inventory for X, Y, or Z. So the game is kind of it's kind of mundane, is that you do a lot of inventory tracking, but the inventory tracking is some of the basis for a lot of the stories that you tell. And so it's not just about inventory tracking. It's not like there's a million items, but just know that there's some technical side to the game that balances out a very, very creative side to it. So these adventure themes are also they serve as your abilities, basically. So rather than have strength, dex, con, this game doesn't do that. It just sort of has like a fight ability, or a fight theme is what we call it, survive theme, or a casting theme, or a deceiving theme. I think other games have different names for it than themes, but that's what I call it. And so that's how it works. And so each character will have just a die, a talent die, like D4 through D12, plus a bonus or modifier to their stuff. And that's pretty much how the game works. It's not particularly complex, but it has enough depth to the dice rolling that it can add for some more complex scenarios than is normally available in D&D and stuff. So the idea is that I've made the basic dice roll just a little bit more complicated, and by doing that, it allows that dice roll to be used for almost everything. I won't go into it right now. It's right here in this dice roll section, and I'm not going to go through the whole book here, but I'm going to try and get through some of the basics. You start the game with a character duo. You're a steward, which means that you are a shepherd, a guide, a parent, a friend, a servant to your characters, right? You pull your characters from the dregs of random generation into a life of meaning. And if you release your characters, then they get released back into the dregs of random simulation, right? And so they end up coming back. All kinds of things can happen to them if they're not under a steward's purview. And so, anyway, just that's kind of how the game works. If you've ever played RimWorld, or I've never played Dwarf Fortress, but I hear it's a lot like RimWorld, then it's a lot like those games if those games were multiplayer, and instead of having an AI storyteller, those games had a human game master storyteller. All right, so there's basically 5 tiers to everything, and a lot of it is based on, that's pretty much it. I won't go into that one right now, but the basic roll that you end up rolling is just as a check. It's a D20, so it's a D20 system. You roll a talent die, which normally for a hero is going to be a d12. That's your what's called a legend. That's why it's called Maps and Legends, is because you normally will play legends as your main characters. But you don't have to. There's 4 other tiers of characters to play, and they have lower dice and lower maximum talent dice, basically. All right, and then you can you'll have simulation rolls, which are normally done by the dungeon master, and then there's upkeep rolls, which are done by everybody when time passes. Usually, there's an upkeep roll of various types. So you just follow the rules for the increment of time that's passed. You follow the rules, and that's how it works. Your world is a completely virgin world. It begins with no map, no monster manual, no pantheon of gods, no grand history, and no plot. It's a sandbox, right? And it starts with a single dot. You name it something you like, and that's either a city, maybe a geographic location, but that's where you start, right? It's maybe some fields out in the middle of nowhere, a point, an inn on a road. That's where you start. And there are some random tools to help you decide what type of environment that is. But, we don't want to tell game masters how to run their game. Or I don't want to tell game masters how to run their game. So you've got those tools, and we'll have some random generation stuff to assist in that. But it doesn't have to be that way. They can just take it and run, right? So... All right, the game uses a character generator to generate all of, as you meet more and more people in the game, you'll sort of slowly build out characters for the world, and all those characters get simulated by the simulator. And there's an unlimited amount that you can have. It's really just how long do you want to wait for your computer to process the data. So currently everything's being run by Excel, but maybe someday we'll have an app for that. But I like the idea of it being in Excel because it allows savvy people to reverse engineer and modify things. It's kind of scrappy, and I like scrappy. All right, 3 story types. You can have a one-nighter, a one-shot, a mini-series, or a longer campaign. The difference is that they all live in the same world, right? So your short stories could be about, I think I mentioned this in another video, but you meet somebody. Let's just say you defend somebody's farmhouse from some goblins. And one of them was a runt goblin, and you didn't want to kill him, right? And so you captured him, and but now you want to play him. He's a captured goblin. The farmers don't have anything; they can't take care of him, and so you have a goblin prisoner, right? And sorry if you can hear that music. I've got some noisy neighbors, but and so now you want to play that character, and so maybe you do a short of how did that runt of a goblin get to be in this little war band of goblins, right? And so that's your background. You play a short about the background of this character, and maybe your friends help you with it, maybe not. So that's the other thing, is that this game offers solo play. It's just as simple as, a lot of this stuff gets recorded. The roles and stuff get recorded in our virtual tabletops, and it's just a matter of having those on hand to show people that this is what happened and these are the roles. You could even record a video just like I'm doing now with a simple screen capture software. Database it somewhere, and if somebody wants to go back and see if you're being honest, they can. But otherwise, they can just trust that this X, Y, and Z happened, that you say happened, and you ran into some magic item, and it's just called trust. You just trust your friends. All right, so performing actions. So I call your DCs, or difficulty challenge, difficulty level, whatever you want to call it, are called marks in this game. And they're 2 numbers, one for the D20 and one for the talent die. So this is a game where if you're fighting, their defense will take away from the damage that you do, right? So the second number, this 4, if a character is easy to hit, they will always take 4 damage away from whatever you roll, right? So that's just standard. So it is hard to hurt people. You don't have very much life in this game. You've only got 15. So having 4 damage reduction is going to save your life a lot and everybody else. It's just the battles are quick and fast, but they are scrappy like this. Okay, so that's the marks. There's 5 basic marks, but because there's 2 numbers, it allows for some really unusual situations which don't fit very well into other games like Dungeons and Dragons. So, for example, advanced marks, you could have a character that has, as I say here, like a pixie who is hard to hit. So they ought to have a high D20 difficulty challenge rating, but easy to do damage to. A low talent die, right? Or work die is what I sometimes call it. So that's also that goes for your damage die. So, or the opposite of that would be a giant, colossi. Is that colossi hard to hit? No, it's freaking huge, right? But it is hard to damage because it's made of freaking dirt or metal or who knows what, right? And so it's like got a super high, basically armor reduction happening, but it's just super easy to hit. So there are some unusual circumstances that may have your game master changing from the 5 basic marks, but in general, the 5 basic marks are what we use. Some actions are pass fail, so just know that you're not always performing work or having this damage reduction apply. Sometimes it's just, did it succeed or not? And this mark is what tells you whether it succeeded in which part. Okay, so that's pretty much that. This is going to get super long if I go through all of this, but let's just go through this last 2 things here. The scale factor is that this game scales up in 3 different tiers, and it depends on how many people are in the situation or encounter that you're in, whether it's a fighting encounter or otherwise. So if there's more than about 10, you'd be in this middle faction playing, which is the default scale level of the game. If you want to get more nitty gritty, you can have duels, which is kind of where D&D lies, where it's kind of every single move counts. And then there's epics, which is like where it's a little bit, zoomed out a little bit more, and it's kind of like just working on the overland map sort of thing. Your workability, just know that this is what allows the game to scale. So all of the stuff that is in the game is based on what's called work, and your work ability is a average of how much work you particularly can do. And then that workability is average for like a whole base of people. And so in each of the 8 adventure themes, what is your base's ability to perform that type of work? What's their fighting? What's their persuasion? What's their crafting ability? What's their harvesting ability? And that allows you to scale to pretty much anything that you want to scale to. All right, so that's the basics of it. It has a super quick start, which you just generate a couple of encounters, a couple of groups of people, and I've already showed that in some other videos. So, but that's how the game works, and the rest of it is all just like, I don't want to get into it because this video is already too long, but that's the basics of it, and hopefully it sounds interesting to you. Sounds like something you might want to play, and just know that was the first 24 pages of a book that will probably end up being about 200 or so. But all you have to do is watch these videos. You don't have to read the book to play the game, right? So watch a few videos, watch somebody play for a little bit, or maybe find a game and play with some people that know how to play, and you're good to go.